Hey guys, so all of you out there that are downstreaming, if you're like me, you've probably got a stack of unused or non-working or just downstream injectors that have just failed. You've probably got a Ziploc bag or a little box full of all the broken ones. In my case, I've got a bunch of these GP General Pump, just adjustable downstreamers. I've never really had much luck with the adjustments on them. I've just always kind of ran them as wide open as I can get. And so what I started thinking of is, why don't I just take one and start cutting and drilling on it and seeing if I can make it work. Not only make it work, but make it work better. So these things straight out of the box, at least for me, on my setup, I have my downstream injector put directly after my burner unit. From there, that jumper line goes to the back of the trailer. That's a 15-foot jumper line. And then from there, it goes into a hose reel with 150 feet. First section of single wire 3/8 hose. From there, I go into another 100-foot section, 3/8 hose. So after that, my ball valve, gun. So you can kind of get an idea. I'm running about 250 to 300 pounds of back pressure on that injector whenever I've got my ball valve completely open. So there's quite a few connections, which is why I got rid of a lot of those connections when I rebuilt those hose reels. So I'm down to about 200, 250 pounds of back pressure on my injector. So for me, these GPs, even running wide open, it would still take about 3.5 to 4 minutes, depending on the actual, thickness of the chemical that I was trying to draw through it. It'd take me about 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes to actually pull 1 gallon of chemical through that. So I would like something a little stronger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut and drill, do some filing, see what I can't do. Alright, so here is one of my old busted ones on the left. Here is my new and improved, resurrected, and modified on the right. So both of these are the exact same part number, GP. Let's see, I'll give you the part number here. That way y'all can just kind of Google it and get some specs on this. But it's the 5 to 8 gallon 100619. Both of these come with a 2.3 orifice, 2.3 millimeters. So what I did was, first thing, I started thinking of the actual inlet. So what I did was I drilled that out, just tried to, open that up a little bit and allow a little bit more flow through there. And I started thinking about the actual adjustment feature on these. And I started looking, and they've got 2 sideways holes. So basically, the farther down you screw this, the less you are going to allow through, because you're going to close these holes off. And I was like, well, the adjustment feature doesn't work much for me anyway, so I'm just going to cut and file that off and then bore this out a little deeper, not so much that I actually affect where the ball valve sits, or the little check ball. So did that one second. From there, I started looking at the inside of the injector itself, where you have your venturi setup. So this one still has the port installed, or the orifice installed. This one has been removed, but what you can immediately notice between the difference in the two is I have opened that up quite a bit. So now I can get some pretty good flow around that venturi. So kind of pondered on that for a few minutes, started looking at it again, and realized that these venturi assemblies, it's not just down to the orifice, it actually carries all the way out through the end, but you really only need a couple of millimeters of that venturi setup to make it function. Everything else is just going to generate back pressure. So there you have it. So I drilled that out a little bit farther. This one's all corroded, but you can definitely tell a difference in the exiting size. So I'm close to where I connect to my next, basically the next quick connect takes me right into my gauge. So I'm still running about the same 250 to 300 psi back pressure all the time on this injector, because I didn't change anything with my hose setup. But what I actually did was I cut about 1.5 minutes off of the time that it takes to inject 1 gallon worth of chemical. So I did a test with just straight water out of a 1 gallon jug, and here's the results. Here you go. Now, what I will add in, since you guys have seen the results, I said it took 3.5 to 4 minutes to suck down a gallon of chemicals initially. Now I'm down to about 2.5 minutes. I don't recommend anybody doing this. I don't recommend anybody doing this specifically if you are not familiar with how your equipment works to begin with, and you're not familiar with the pressures that are actually being generated within your system. Prior to my downstream injectors, I'm running that 3,500 psi. After my downstream injectors with my ball valve open, I'm only generating about 250 pounds worth of back pressure. So if you don't understand the pressure differences and the pressures involved, I would not recommend you getting into the business of drilling holes and boring out different parts of metal on your setup. If you've got a couple of injectors and you've got a little bit of experience in your setup, by all means, you make your own decision and you kind of tinker around with your equipment. I'm always messing with stuff. You guys have seen my videos. I like to build my own stuff and I like to modify what I have. So my disclaimer to you is, if you decide to do this, I hope you have amazing results with it. But if you are unfamiliar and this is your initial go at trying to learn how to downstream, let alone learn how to modify downstream injectors, I would recommend you just spend a few more months getting familiar with the process before you start drilling and filing on your equipment. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe.